Spags, it is Friday, which means we are going to draft a best ball team on Underdog Fantasy today.
Yeah, the big board is where we're going to be putting some money on today because there's no NBA, and Lord knows I can't go one day without getting some skin in the game. So we're going to talk about the rookies. We're going to try to get some sweet stacks. Got some Aaron Rodgers news as well. And oh yeah, Splash Play's got a TikTok now. So let's hit that intro, Pete. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Splash Play, the fantasy football podcast for every game under the sun. And once again, I'm Chris Spags, joined by your friend of mine, Pete Overzet. And Pete, we have never embodied the slogan of this show, the fantasy football podcast for every game under the sun, as much as we are today, because we can't even take a week off without doing another best ball draft.
I know. It's my thing last year around this time. I was kind of keeping best ball at like an arm's distance. You know, I did a couple on the shows, but the more you do, the more you get addicted. I find myself registering for more and more of the big board slow drafts on Underdog, just because I'm liking getting that dopamine rush of waking up and seeing I'm on the clock and have a few picks to make. So yeah, it's a slippery slope. And if we keep drafting one of these a week, I have a feeling I'm going to be, full blown addicted here in another couple of weeks.
There are some more rookie big boards going around out there. We talked about the Ringer one on the previous show. We've talked about RotoViz's article. The FO40 from Football Outsiders is going to be released on the 28th, so that's going to be a big one as well. But I do have the preview of the list here that we'll be consulting today. But make sure you go over to footballoutsiders.com/subscribe. Check out the packages on there. Lots of great data coming into the mix. We did some planning today around USFL content. We're going to hopefully start getting in the not-too-distant future as well. So that's the goal, is to make Football Outsiders a resource amidst all these other ones out there. But go check it out at footballoutsiders.com/subscribe. And also, just go support their shows as well. They're doing off-season shows, really digging into the finer points of football analysis to get you guys prepared for what's going to come in this off-season. And also make sure you're subscribed to this channel here, whether it be Pete's channel or the Splash Play channel. Helps us out a bunch. And hit the like button as well, because that gets us able to be seen by more people. And that's always the goal, Pete. And as you know, because I told Pete right before the show that I made us an @SplashPlayPod TikTok, buoyed by the success I'm receiving on that platform, Pete. I've already been, I think, dubbed the top sports betting TikTok by somebody out there, I'm sure.
Does this mean you're going to make me do TikToks from the Splash Play account?
Yes, but only you dancing, though. Dancing seductively, if you can.
How about this for a TikTok idea? Show it. We use the Splash Play account for it. You do earnest content, and then I do follow-up videos to every one of your posts, kind of commenting and critiquing it.
It honestly might not be a bad bit. It seems like TikTok, what I was told, I was telling people before the show that there's this girl, I guess, who was on some podcast talking about how her podcast got popular. And she was like, yeah, I just started doing TikToks of Reddit threads that were popular and reading them and explaining them. And I was like, are you fucking kidding? This girl's now got like 1 million views on TikTok, like is making money off it. Her podcast take a gigantic jump. And I think the issue for us, Pete, is that as guys who've done content for this long, we're probably just overthinking it. I think the bar is about as low as it could possibly be.
No, it truly is as low as it could be. The problem is, and we've seen this wave with lots of stuff, Twitter accounts. I remember it was really popular with Tumblrs, where someone would have just like the most simplistic hook for a Tumblr. Like I remember back in the day, one of my favorite Tumblrs was one that it was all about showing incorrect uses of scare quotes, like either businesses on their promotional sides, and it would just post them and then just like have a 1-sentence roast of that thing. It was like one of my favorite Tumblrs. The problem is it's like, do you want to devote your life to this one specific hyper niche thing? But a lot of them get big enough that then people just send them tips, right? It was like when Harris Whittles used to have his Humble Brag account. It got so big that people would just tag him for all the best ones. So he had to do no work except go and retweet the ones people tag. So the goal is to come up with an idea that catches on so much that other people do the work for us.
There was a Tumblr I did once, and I don't know if you made a Tumblr at that point in your career, Pete, because I was doing the blog thing and it was like, something here's got to pop. I made one called You Got Blurred, where it was like the Jimmy Kimmel Unnecessary Censorship, but just taking paparazzi photos or like whatever photos and just blurring out part of it. And it actually got pretty good traction. The issue for me is I have no follow through with these things where it's like, oh, here's an idea I have. This seems fun. I'll do it for a couple weeks. But it was like quoted on like time.com at some point. Like there's like lots of weird shit that just used to happen at this point of the internet. And now it's just the same thing, except it's on TikTok or it's on Telegram. I don't know. like wherever else people are doing content that's really low effort.
I don't think it's Telegram. Telegram is where all of the anti-government libertarian crypto bros hang out and congregate. I believe that's Telegram's main use case.
They're allowed to have low bar content as well on Telegram, I'm sure. Or some could argue that's all the content that would be on that platform. And shout out to the chat as well. We got Derek Richard, people degenning the big boards, 59 big boards. Derek also super chatting in his hate for Malden, Massachusetts. Pecan also maxed out almost on the big board. Pete, I don't know if you want to pull up the board here so we can make the most of the time, but I did want to talk briefly about Hayden Winks' tweet where he was talking about basically calling people that are diversifying their lineups cowards. I know I saw our guy, Drico, commenting back on the chat saying that, basically he thinks diversification is one of the most important things you could do. And I don't know if you saw the tweet, Pete. I saw it right before the show, so I didn't give it to you in advance to pull up. But do you have any thoughts on diversification and if it is like a coward's move of some sort when it comes to best ball?
I don't think so. To me, and the way I saw a little bit of that, I didn't read a bunch of the replies. We talked about it in the ship chasing Discord a couple weeks back. I think the conversation was spurred because Liam, who won, he had some super big stands on players, extremely overweight on a lot of the Bills guys, specifically Gabriel Davis. He was really underweight on a lot of league winners. I mean, even he said he didn't have much Cooper Kupp. I don't think he had much Deebo Samuel. But my take on it is, in these drafts, we're trying to find an edge somewhere, and we want to push those edges wherever we have them. And sometimes that edge might be a player's ADP. Like if I told you, okay, Cooper Kupp's going in the 7th round of big board drafts, you would want to have 100% Cooper Kupp because the edge would be his ADP inefficiency. Now, what if I told you, okay, everyone is drafting running backs with their first 5-round picks? It'd be like, all right, I want to hammer the elite wide receivers in that range. That would be where the structural edge is. So the whole question is, where is the current edge in these drafts? And that's always changing. The meta is constantly changing. And these drafts are really efficient because people have gotten better at structure. People don't let ADP slip. So to me, it's more of a moving target to answer that. If you think you've identified a specific player ADP inefficiency, I think hammering that edge makes a ton of sense. Now, the question is, if you're going extremely overweight on something, you're basically saying I'm smarter than the market, or the market is off by this much. I think earlier in the offseason, when the ADPs are less efficient and there's more data, that makes sense to me that those spots would occur more frequently. By the time the end of August rolls around, I don't necessarily want to be in the business of being like, the market is wrong by like 4 rounds on something. Like, I'm much more willing to draft in line with the market. So I do think it's an interesting conversation. I don't think one way is right or wrong. It's more just about, where do you think you have your edge, and can you push it in a logical way?
I also think too, as best ball drafts do get more popular, and that's certainly why we're doing more of this content. I wouldn't say reluctant, but I just didn't dive in, full feet like Pete has done on some of his other shows and his channel and ship chasing and all of that. But for me, it's like, I think this is just going to be a sharper market year to year. And we saw it even this season compared to the first year that we were doing splash play. And, I kind of picked up my secondhand information from Pete in that process. But I would say, like, as guys like Drico, as guys like the higher stakes DFS guys start to gravitate more towards best ball and are willing to put that cash on the line in best ball formats, you are going to see more of an optimization of process. You are going to see people drafting against type, probably like Pete is saying, not 4 rounds away, but maybe in one spot where it's really obvious to take Tyreek Hill, you then take another receiver, you take a running back, or you go just a different direction that's going to give you a different look. Like if you play DFS in the regular, that's all it takes is that 1 to 5% owned guy sometimes that nobody else is on. And if you get them at 10%, that's enough to put you over the top. And I think that's where I don't have the arrogance to assume that I'm having the best, most recent takes. I think even with the best information out there, you're still going to end up wrong once or twice on some key points just because of the fact that guys get hurt. Guys end up in situations that aren't quite as good. Another running back comes into the room and it completely throws off, what the outlay of what this proposition could have been for you. And I think that's the main thing here where, like, I think Hayden's as sharp as anybody out there, does the work, does the film grinding in addition to combining it with the knowledge of fantasy. But it's just like, you could be that guy. You could be Hayden spending thousands of hours on this. And if you end up wrong in 1 or 2 spots, all that matters is just you chose a different pathway than everybody else out there did.
Yeah. And I also think too, just in kind of circling back to what I was saying, I think one thing that's funny is, and both of these things can be true. you'll hear people say the ADPs are incredibly efficient on Underdog and the way they push out the updates and they happen in real time. News gets reflected in the ADP within a couple of days. And so the ADPs can be really efficient. And yet you can go look at a draft and you'll see, okay, this guy drafted 10 running backs, or this guy took 4 tight ends. And even though they drafted them at, ADP, the structure is generally where I see people making the most mistakes on Underdog because of how good the ADP is and the way the default rank set to that. It's almost impossible to make like super bad individual picks in a vacuum manually, but you'll see people messing up structure a ton. So that's why I think I prefer to lean into structure as where to, get my edge, as opposed to, falling back on my specific player takes. And normally, if I like a guy, it's normally like I like him maybe a round and a half more than the field. But there are very few times where I'm like, I like this guy, 4 rounds more, to where if I am pushing that edge, I would want to have like 75% of him. And I haven't had that scenario come up for me yet.
Yeah, no, I think there's validity to a lot of the takes. We're going to be doing the best we can. I know we got some of the replies on Twitter, people asking us to dig deeper on best balls, what they want to see in the offseason. That'll be certainly a factor here as we bring in some of the sharpest people out there to break it down. Guys like Liam, guys like Leone, we talked about. Pete and I were texting about just some guests that we can get in just to give you guys some different angles. So that's the goal here. That's where we're starting, as I think both of our respective viewpoints. And we hope you guys will ride along with us all offseason. And shout out Devin Davis in the chat. Name a better duo, Pete and Spags. That's a nice one, Pete. Another positive little mention here for us as we accumulate them one by one, week to week.
That's right. This is why our TikTok premise of alternating videos is going to blow us up.
I think we're the most versatile fantasy football show in the business. I will say that. In terms of just doing different shows, filling an hour here and there, I would find it hard to compete with us on that level, if not the quality of content. I feel like that's the one thing.
Oh my God, Derek. You have too much money to just be donating on this F Malden bit. But I mean, Spags just said we're the most versatile podcast. I mean, we can single-handedly wage an attack on a random town in Massachusetts. That's the kind of range that we can display on this show.
It's one of those things where, like, if you pull up Google Analytics and you could see like where everybody in your country comes from, it's like we're the #1 fantasy football show in Malden, Massachusetts right now, because we're always talking about them.
That's right. I mean, when we do our inevitable live tour, our first stop is right on the outskirts of Malden, actually, so we can not properly give them the attention, but that's where our biggest fans are.
What is it going to be, like what was it, Office Park? I think Derek's having it. We're going to do our show at an office park in Malden, Massachusetts.
Yeah. Sean, to be completely honest, don't even understand the bit. I think Derek had some business stuff with a building in Malden, and the city was causing him lots of financial and, time headaches with stuff. Derek can explain it in the chat, but we are happy. We are clearly on Team Derek here with this one.
Yeah, we are all here. We're your friends. We're here to vent for you, your bartenders, especially if you tip us. We're willing to listen to all the problems you have, whether they be in Malden, Mass, or abroad. That's always the thing. Pete, you want to pull up the draft here while we catch up on NFL news items, just because?
Yeah.
It's City Hall. So Roger Goodell is going to be, it looks like, re-upped as commissioner. The quote that I saw about that one, he's at the top of his game right now, said one owner. Why would he want him walking out the door? Nothing too surprising here, Pete, but, we are a fantasy football show. We're covering football. Goodell being in the seat again feels like he's learned, feels like he's running about as hot as he has in his entire run right now. So I don't think there's any surprises here, but are you ready for another 5 to 10 years, Pete, of Roger Goodell being the man who lords over one of our favorite products?
Yeah, I mean, Roger Goodell is basically, all owners are to an extent, but he in particular is just a puppet for the owners. So it's kind of, I guess I'm ambivalent to it. He hasn't done anything to ever impress me as the commissioner. So I don't know. It'd be nice to have a more progressive, sharper, guy in there, like an Adam Silver, who seems to be doing a good job with the NBA. So that's a bummer to keep the boomer stuff rolling with Goodell, but I don't know. It's always going to be business as usual with the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL right now is propping up the entire TV industry with the ratings. Like we've talked about on this show a bunch, where the only things that have gone up over the last year are basically NFL ratings and AEW's ratings, the wrestling company. And that's just true across the TV industry, where they're clinging to all these life rafts of things that are also having, ratings driving down, including Adam Silver's NBA. So I get why Goodell will continue to be in power. And I just hope he continues to learn lessons. Like, it does seem like he learned some things from his mishandling of the Ray Rice situations, the Kaepernick situations. Maybe he'll start to get some more things right, as we all hope to, with wisdom and experience. And in Green Bay, Pete, they did hire Aaron Rodgers' preferred QB coach, a guy, Tom Clements, that he single-handedly attributed a lot of his growth as a young QB too. We talked about this earlier in the week, and you clickbaited it about as handsomely as you can clickbait anything on your channel. But Aaron Rodgers, I think I'm fully locked in on him being back in Green Bay. I think it would be a gigantic upset if he didn't come back at this point.
Yeah, I agree. It does seem like things are trending in that direction, but it is crazy how, I mean, we still have to acknowledge how much like his sentiment and his feelings change on a whim. Like if we got another news report in a week where Rodgers had some, behind closed doors meeting with the Packers and then they couldn't agree on something and now it's all blown up again, would that surprise you in the least bit?
I guess not, but at a certain point, like I think they're now kissing the ring for him, where you're bringing in guys that he wants to have there. We'll see what they do in free agency too. If they really just only address offensive line and receiver, that's a lot of Aaron Rodgers exerting his will again. But like, I think if you're Aaron Rodgers, if you're going to be this mercurial guy and they're giving you literally everything you want, including bringing a quarterback's coach out of retirement, like this guy's been retired since 2016, just to get him back in and try to make him happy and have him for this run. You would have to be a gigantic dickhead on an Aaron Rodgers level at this point to just not be a Green Bay Packer, with them giving him the whole world and everything in it.
Yeah, and that is kind of the funny thing for Rodgers of what, means more to him, having kind of his ear to the GM and being able to call a lot of shots, or perhaps a change of scenery where he wouldn't necessarily have that kind of control, but maybe it would be a healthier environment. And it kind of reminds me too. I mean, I don't know. Did you see that? It was from, I don't know, it was maybe about a month ago. It was sometime during the NFL playoffs where there was kind of the report where Brady didn't like the kind of more like loosey-goosey nature that Bruce Arians kind of ran the Bucks with. And that's kind of the thing, right? Where he went to a new spot, but it wasn't necessarily the exact kind of environment he enjoyed being in. And that probably contributed to him retiring as well. We are on the clock here. I mean, speaking of the Packers, I mean, I'm definitely down for Devontae at 110.
I think, yeah, we have not had Devontae come to our spot so far. He certainly is going to be the wide receiver one, regardless of what happens in Green Bay. You would think at this point with how everything's going with Rodgers. So I feel more comfortable drafting Devontae Adams than we probably would have at any other point anyway.
Yeah. I don't know. I obviously, if stuff happened with Rodgers or Devontae leaves, his quarterback situation could downgrade. I definitely am not discounting that, but I think there's a lot of situations or changing quarterbacks that could potentially be neutral. And I think if he is back with Rodgers, then this is far too cheap. I mean, I think if you locked and loaded Devontae Adams in, I mean, to me, he's an easy top 5 pick. So I'm happy to take a little bit of a discount now while we get it. You think back to last year when there was uncertainty, some people were getting Devontae Adams at the back end of round 2. And that ended up being a massive edge for those teams. So I like scooping these discounts early whenever we can.
Also, people saying too in the YouTube chat, Dagus Max and Tanner Borrad saying they were trying to get in, I guess couldn't get into our draft. Look, the splash play drafts are a hot ticket. We all know that, Pete. Limited inventory is the main thing.
So question here, I would say if you want to go with a running back, I'm interested in DeAndre Swift anchor here, or you will never get me complaining about Debo, Diggs, or AJ Brown.
I feel like we always get Debo, and I'm going to draft for the going against type and say, let's take Stephon Diggs.
All right, let's do it.
All right. I do think I have honestly, and I think we talked about this on one of our previous big board drafts. I have concerns like Gabriel Davis, the monster run he had down the stretch is kind of portending what the future is going to be. But that said, like if he ends up the wide receiver too and ends up actually being useful, maybe you see a little more attention shift away from Diggs, where he was clearly getting the guy's getting a lot of the double coverage this year, especially after Sanders started hot and then kind of ran pretty cold and injured down the stretch.
And yes, it sounds like Tanner is trying to run a concurrent draft. If you guys want to hop in a big board draft with Tanner right now, it sounds like he is down. But from my experience, these are still filling pretty fast. But it might have been something where I think you can back it out via math, where you can look at how many total entries there are and how many drafts have happened. So you can figure out how many spots are available in your specific draft. But we probably signed up and there was probably only a couple spots left if everyone was trying to get in.
Also, Drico in the chat clarifying his point we talked about earlier in his Twitter debate with Hayden Wink, saying, just FYI, I don't think diversification is the aim of the game. I think on the margin, people focus on specific players way too much and not types of players. I think, if I misspoke for Drico's point, that's my bad. Certainly check out the Twitter thread with him and Hayden. I think also Eric Beimfor chiming in there. So a lot of the great minds there coming together to talk about it. But I think it's more like if you're drafting Bengal stacks over and over and over again in every draft, like I just think that's sort of what I took away from Hayden's, thought process there, where it's like, if you're a big believer in this team and you're drafting them in a certain range, like you should be doing that over and over again. And I just don't think that's the case. Like, I think a lot of this is stripping out your own biases as best you can and just trying to get different looks, especially if you are ending up like in the 10 spot every time. Like, don't do the same 10 spot draft, do a different version of that 10 spot draft you did last time.
Yeah, and to like one of the things Drico, is hinting at there, and a good example would be a couple years ago when Pat and I were doing a bunch of our ship chasing drafts. Pat was really into Jalen Reagor as a prospect. He got very excited about him, and we were extremely overweight Jalen Reagor across a bunch of teams. We probably had him on 6 or 7, and we had very, very little Justin Jefferson. And the thing is like, you could even talk to Pat, like Pat liked Justin Jefferson. He had a great prospect profile, but because we slightly preferred Jalen Reagor, we ended up like extremely overweight on that. And that is a classic example of kind of getting overconfident in a specific player as opposed to a player archetype, which I think is what Drico's talking about here, in that, these, rookie wide receivers that get drafted with early capital and have really good prospect profiles and were, productive in college, they often can succeed in year 1. And the same thing will transpire with year 2 wide receivers. Like last year, I had way too much Chase Claypool and Brandon Ayuk, and I'm trying to come up with who was one of our second year guys who actually blew up last year. But I think thinking about players as archetypes and buckets and trying to target those versus falling in love with a specific player within that cohort is definitely the way to be thinking about it.
And I would say too, like if you did end up with a ton of Reagor, like you should probably be getting some Dallas Goedert or, this year, some Devonta Smith, like get some plays that do leverage against the concept of you being wrong if you are making that big stance. Like I think that's just something too. Again, this is the DFS brain in me talking, but I think that's a big part of the, diversification as well. Deontay Johnson intriguing, DeAndre Hopkins being this far down. I know we've talked about maybe having less fear over him aging ungracefully. I don't mind taking another wide receiver here.
Yeah, I was going to push for Waller, but he doesn't make it. I mean, I'm kind of out on Hopkins. I think I would prefer Deontay Johnson or like a Cam Akers anchor. Are you okay with Deontay?
Yeah, I think Deontay works for me. Just one of those guys that's been Matt Harmon's reception perception guy for years. And I think Pittsburgh's going to end up with somebody good at quarterback. And honestly, based on how Ben played last year and how Deontay played with Ben playing that poorly, you could argue that pretty much anybody you get in is going to be an upgrade for him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not too worried. I think Deontay, just his role and where he wins on the football field, I think that's going to translate to a lot of different quarterbacks. I think he's going to be a preferred target. You more worry about, the Chase Claypool role. If you have a dusty quarterback in there that can't get the ball downfield, then, Claypool's going to take a real big hit. But like you said, I can't imagine things getting much worse than it did with Roethlisberger. Maybe it could, but that seems unlikely.
Yeah, I agree. At this point, guys, a good route runner who's not a high A dot guy. Like I think Deontay Johnson, you could put in Colt McCoy there and he's probably going to have a decent enough year. Not that, honestly, that actually could be an option they go to. I think Akers here now feels about right.
Yeah, I agree. I would, I love kind of doing these builds where you get your anchor build, but later, like we got a ton of wide receiver firepower. And I mean, Cam Akers, before he got hurt last year, was going at the 1-2 turn. And now you're getting him at 4-3. And I mean, the one thing too is we've seen, McVay has gone back to Akers time and time again. Every time it'd be like, oh, Henderson looks like he's playing really well. Nope. Akers comes back, gets all the touches. Oh, Sony Michel's playing really well. Sony Michel barely played in the Super Bowl. So I still think this team wants to center around Cam Akers, and I'll happily take this discount here.
I think he's one of those guys too that, going last year, he was like a round 2 running back, right?
He was a 1-2 turn pick, like early second round pick in most drafts in the summer.
Yeah, and I think when you combine that with how he got deployed coming back in, like he was clearly hurt, I think, coming back. Like he wasn't full go, wasn't 100%. So I think you give him this full offseason, get a team too that probably needs to make some improvement around the edges just to keep up with the Joneses, like as the Rams are going to after being a world champion. I think Cam Akers to me, like that, the fact we got him in the 4th round feels like tremendous value.
Yeah, I like that. And some of my favorite builds last year, towards the end of the summer, would be when I would get like a DeAndre Swift. In his ADP ended up creeping up, but you could get him. I want to say it was like the 2-3 turn. And basically building the anchor after you get to wide receiver ones. I think that is kind of my favorite structural strategy, and I think it's kind of viable right now. Like Aaron Jones in this round, J.K. Dobbins, who was going much, much earlier last year, at least a round ahead. So I think there's some guys that you can kind of buy the dip on here and build a really nice structure. One thing that I have struggled with in my big board drafts to date is I have not caught up to how quickly the elite quarterbacks go.
Mhm.
And I've been getting squeezed out of that, I don't know, top 7, 8 tier a good bit. And it's kind of, I'm just saying this out loud to as a reminder that we should maybe consider one of these guys at the 5-6 turn, just so I just like having that flexibility to only go 2 QBs. In the way I've been drafting these, I've almost always have had to go 3 QBs, just because I'm getting them so late.
So are we thinking it might be, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is going to be lower, right? Or is he
Yeah,
already? Yeah.
Rogers is lower here. Like for me, the tier I'm talking about would be like after Kyler, like this like Lamar, Burrow, Kyler. I've been missing out, and of course, as I say that, fucking Herbert and Lamar go right off. I love Lamar in this range. And I don't mind the secondary range either. Um, and I do think because we have Adams, making a gamble on him still being with Rodgers, it makes sense. But
Yeah.
we don't have to force it. It's just something I've been trying to be more cognizant of.
Yeah, because I'm thinking we can get one more wide receiver running back, then take Rodgers in the next round, and he'll still be there. And we're getting him, we're buying the dip on him and buying into the confidence here because we are tracking these news stories every single week. Like I feel about as close to 100% on Rodgers being, going back to Green Bay as I think we probably will all offseason. So I'm comfortable taking him now, and if we can get him in the 6th.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. See, I don't know if we need to take Rodgers here. Like, I wouldn't want to take Rodgers over Burrow and Murray. I still think
Yeah.
those guys are in a different tier. To me, Kyler is the guy that you're getting a discount on right now relative to news. We have all the things, him beefing or not being happy with the franchise, more calling him, malcontent and selfish and all this. Whereas, like, once things snap back, God, every time I talk about a guy, he just gets sniped. I'm fine passing on Burrow here though, and then seeing. I think Rodgers will make it back to us in the 7th.
Yeah, I think go back to the wide receiver. I mean, do we like Pittman enough? Pittman or Williams enough to go here?
Yeah, I mean the ship chasing guys never let me draft Pittman because Pat and Gretch don't like him. So I'm
I would
happy to
take
get
Pittman. Yeah, let's take
Pittman
that.
here.
He made a leap last year, and that was with Ty being healthy most of the year. And there could be, either Wentz, they'll have some continuity there, or a QB upgrade. I think all those things bode well. Williams is a free agent too, I think, right? So that could
Yeah,
be a spot where he moves, which could be positive for him, but we just won't know how to stack that up.
yeah. Um, I also would. I also don't mind taking. I was gonna say Brees Hall, but he obviously goes here. I'm also not opposed to, and I know I'm gonna say him and he's gonna get picked, but I also like Michael Carter as like an RB2 in this range.
Oh yeah, Michael Carter showed the pass game work. I wouldn't be opposed there. And we have talked in the past about the Jets maybe being one of those teams that can take a Bengals-ish jump, if not a full Bengals jump. And one thing for me too, Brees Hall, I will say, and this is where our Football Outsiders FO40 board is going to come into play. We have had Kenneth Walker being the top fantasy, potential fantasy guy, obviously subject to whatever situation these guys end up in. But that's something our guy Mike Tanier has been really drilling in. That Walker's number 1, Spiller's number 2, Brees Hall's number 3. So I think waiting to get Kenneth Walker a little bit later on would be my preference over taking Brees Hall a little bit early.
Yeah, Debo is going ham on running backs there. I'm down for
You want to
Carter here. Are you?
Carter? I mean, are we going to wait on Rodgers, or do you just want to get Rodgers now, just to have somebody that we know?
I think we stim. I think I feel like there's more of a cliff at running back than there is at
Okay. So take
quarterback right
Michael
now.
Carter. I mean, young guy coming into second year offense. That's going to be better. I support it.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean we still have other outs here. Robert saying Colts have no QB, Carson has a serious injury. I mean the thesis of the play when I draft Michael Pittman literally has nothing to do with the quarterback. Like I don't think Carson Wentz elevated Michael Pittman this year. I think at best he was kind of a neutral effect on his performance. So I'm not too worried about Pittman in the context of his quarterback.
I agree. And I think too, like, it really comes down to what I said earlier. Like, I think if Carson Wentz comes back, like he's probably, even if he's still not good, he's still going to rely on Pittman a little bit more and know where he wants the ball and know how he handles cutting off his routes and things like that. So that's a positive. And if they don't have Carson Wentz at QB and it's somebody who's hopefully a little bit better, or maybe somebody who fits what Frank Reich wants to accomplish more, that's probably also good for Pittman. So I think Pittman's one of those options where it's getting better, I think, either way for him. Plus just him being young and growing into his skin a little bit more heading into year 3.
Checking out some of these other builds here to see what people are doing. Most teams have, I would say, about half the quarterbacks because we've had about QB. What do we have? 2, 4, 5, 6. So we've had 7 off the board through 6 rounds. Any of these other structures jumping out to you right now?
I'm kind of surprised. I mean, it's really RB heavy. I know our guy Derek's in the chat and he's going really RB heavy, including he's got the pick after us. He's got Javonte Williams, Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, and Breece Hall. The one thing that stands out to me is that Willis is always in our drafts. And I think he now finds our drafts to be plus EV. Like, obviously he's a part of the show too, so we're glad to have him in there. But I think he also likes knowing what we're doing. So that's at least one person that he can fully see like the strategy on and then pick accordingly. And that's just clever by our accountant Willis.
That's right. As Chris G once famously said, drafting with these streamers is idiot streamers is plus EV.
Yeah,
he didn't say idiot. I think that was my punch up on his line.
If we're literally talking about, if you have one person in a draft literally telling you who they're trying to draft and then getting angry and like whatever on a show, and you can pivot around that, like, yeah, that is probably plus EV.
I will say too, I'll spin zone it and say why it's plus EV for us in that it goes back to the diversification conversation where I say all the players I like who I normally would just draft, and then you take them from me and I'm forced to draft players that are probably have similar probability of being just as good. I just don't take them because they're not my preferred option. So joke's on you. You're forcing me into positive diversification.
FF Doom saying anything against Spags is plus EV. That's inaccurate. You could ask the fine bookmakers at Fox Bet how they've been getting worked with my picks. Pete and I were talking before the show. I got another $500 bet on the Yale first half line today, Pete, because that's where I am in my degeneracy. Is now I don't even want to know the teams. I just want to know what's a good bet and what's not a good bet.
There you go. Let's see here. So, man, we're probably going to be going more like tight end by 3, just because this is a pretty big cliff here. I will say, as far as the quarterback stuff, I think Jalen Hurts is mispriced in this range. I don't know if we want to, like with Debo behind us, not having taken a quarterback with 2 picks yet to go. What do you think about Hurts?
I mean, Jalen Hurts is perfectly fine as a naked QB, so I think that works for me. I am a little bit bummed that we're not getting Aaron Rodgers though.
Wait. Rodgers went though. That's what
no, I mean, I'm saying that we didn't get him. Yeah.
I didn't think who took Rodgers, and then we can criticize them. Aaron Rodgers went to Paquant here. You're killing me. Just let us get our stack. You take the naked Jalen Hurts. Your second QB too. Oh my God. I'm tilting.
Also, Willis is tailing my Yale pick. To be clear, the Yale bet that I got was, where is it? Yale minus 2.5 at plus 100 was the first half spread. So I think it actually might have been an alternate spread. But
and where I mean, this is a very natural, organic plug. But where are you pulling this from?
Well, to be clear, I'm pulling this from my own sources now, but this will be part of our edgesports.com relaunch that we're doing coming up next week. But basically, tracking top international sports books that I won't name out loud, but if you ever want to DM me and learn more about it, there's a couple of sports books internationally that have been doing this for very long that take every bet, including $100,000, $1 million bets from people, don't limit their bettors. As a result, they have the sharpest market out there. And if you compare those lines to your American sportsbook lines, you're probably going to win more often than not. And we are on the clock.
I would say I don't mind AJ Dillon if we want to
I
round
agree.
out our Packers bet. Garrett Wilson could be a fun pick, but what do you think?
I would say Dylan or Kenneth Walker would be my two.
All right, let's do Dillon.
Yeah. So anyway, just to finish the thought there, basically, if you're seeing minus money on some of the top international sports books, maybe ones that rhyme with Rinicle, if you see that bet there, and then you can go to your sports book and get a plus money bet on something they have as minus money, that's generally going to make you profitable over time because that's just a probability game at that point.
Devin says, I don't think I stacked QB wide receiver last season. Should I focus on doing that more this year in best ball? I think if you're playing the tournaments, you definitely should be focused on stacking. I think some people take it a little too far. You'll see people reaching ahead of ADP 2 to 3 rounds to complete their stacks or to grab their quarterback. I think there's diminishing returns when you do that. But when you think about how these tournament structures work, and how you need to finish top of your group to advance during those, money playoff weeks, 15, 16, 17, the stacking and the correlation just makes so much sense. You can use an example of think back to all of the Burrow teams that advanced that week that they played the Chiefs, all the Burrow Higgins teams, because those guys just put up massive scores. And then if you had a Burrow double stack with Higgins and Chase, well, now all of a sudden you get the Chase big week 17, you get the big Higgins week, a couple weeks before, whenever that was. So I do think you should be thinking about stacking and correlation in these tournaments.
And I think also, but for this particular tournament though, Pete, like I think I'm less slavish to stacking as you would be in like a July best ball, where kind of the outlay of what the depth chart might be, or at least who the quarterbacks are going to be. Like here, I don't like we're probably not going to end up with a clean stack, but I also feel like we have a pretty good build.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I don't panic about it because one, I think we have one of the best QBs to not have unstacked, like you mentioned before. And, we're going to have, backdoor stack options. It's also just hard at this time of the year. We have rookie quarterbacks coming in, we have free agency, we have trades, we have injuries. Like some of these backdoor stacks are much harder to do right now as well. So I think, I for that reason, I have been drafting a lot of 3 quarterback teams, both because I've been getting squeezed on the elite guys, and also because I don't think my edge right now is with some of these clever stacks, because we just don't know. So I've basically just been trying to kind of raise my floor with the amount of QB points I'm getting, but I still think there's some nice values down here. And even looking at Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Tua, Tannehill, like there's some pretty easy backdoor stacks that you can set up with these guys. And we kind of know where they're going to be.
Would you take a Deshaun Watson at all in one of these drafts at this point, just without knowing where he's going to be or if he's going to be anywhere?
I think I've taken him in one of these. I do think he's probably a decent risk reward at these prices as your, QB2 or whatever. Yeah, I have a blind spot because I just don't want to root for him. I just don't even want to be sweating his shit. And I think with his legal stuff still unsettled, there's, it's not a slam dunk that he's going to be playing next year. But at these prices, I think the risk reward is probably there.
Tube Socks in the chat saying you get Denver guys late, hope to get a QB, preferably Rodgers. I mean, this particular draft that we're making today is based on the concept that Rodgers is not going to be going anywhere besides Green Bay. That's why we took Devontae Adams where we did. But yeah, I mean, Denver, we talked about this last time. Like we took Drew Lock on a stream draft previously just because he's the guy in there. He's currently the favorite to be Denver's QB according to the betting odds. But like the hope is that they'll upgrade to somebody. I just don't think you could trust any Denver stack right now.
Yeah. I don't think they're a team you go out of your way. Yeah, that draft we did, it made sense because I think we had Sutton and Tim Patrick and needed a third QB.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're gonna be on the clock here. I do think I mean, there's some interesting names here for sure. I wouldn't mind getting a tight end. Like, to me, there's a little bit of a tier break after Freiermuth and Gesicki. Like, I still think those guys have some potential for upside. And this could be one of those spots where we basically try to do a Pittsburgh stack and then throw a dart on like the QB3 to see if we could hit it.
Yeah, I would take Freiermuth here. I'm okay with that.
And the other thing too about it is, even if we don't end up getting the correct quarterback, like there's still the macro correlation. Like, if the Steelers do find their quarterback of the future and they have a top 5 offense next year, like, just because we have the quarterback or don't have the quarterback doesn't mean we wouldn't want pieces of an explosive offense and some of their most talented players. So I'm not ever Xing out and being like, well, I'm not taking Freiermuth with Deontay Johnson because we don't have or know the quarterback. Like, I don't think that's the way to think about it either.
And also, that's something, again, not to tie everything back to DFS, but like you see that win tournaments a lot where it's like, oh, you got the 2 Chiefs receivers, but not Patrick Mahomes at QB. Like, Jalen Hurts kind of proofs us in that front where he's going to do what he does and probably not results in a ton of spiked upside for his receivers, certainly some, but not as much as other QBs. And as a result, like, you should probably need to cover that gap between whatever stacks go off. In our case, the Pittsburgh one. But like, Jalen Hurts is going to give you 20 a week. So like, does that 5 points that you would get from the Pittsburgh QB matter that much? Probably not.
Here, I just did some quick Googling for some alpha here because Devin also asked, who are the Steelers quarterback going to be? Any ideas? I found this blog. I think it's the SB Nation, Steelers Nation one, but the rookie quarterback, Sam Howell, University of North Carolina, Sam Howell really looks to be one of the Steelers front office's draft darling. Oh, my bad. I got excited talking about Sam Howell.
No,
who do you like?
How about Rondale?
Okay. You're never going to... get me.
Ramondre Stevenson being there still kind of intriguing too.
Yeah, I feel like Ramondre's even gotten cheaper than where we took him in a draft a couple weeks ago.
I agree.
Let me finish my Sam Howell propaganda here. So it says the Steelers front office has been to Chapel Hill a number of times for practice, games, and everything in between. If the Steelers are set on taking a quarterback with the 20th pick, I feel like Howell could have a very good chance at his name being called. And I will say too, I forget whose big board draft or whose rankings I was looking at. They actually had Sam Howell as the number 1 overall quarterback prospect too, which I feel like I'd been hearing Malik Willis more than Sam Howell. So I don't know. I like that reading the tea leaves there.
On our FO Fantasy 40 board, which again coming up publicly on the 28th, but I have the spreadsheet version of it to look at and consult during these drafts. Kenny Pickett, number 1 QB, Malik Willis, number 2 QB, Matt Corral, number 3, Desmond Ridder out of Cincinnati, number 4. Apparently he's a guy that could be on the watch for rising up the boards. Sam Howell, number 5. So actually not that bad. I think Malik Willis is the one that I've seen linked more to Pittsburgh, but I guess if you do see the reporting about more visits to watch the guy play, like that could be a thing that they just take Sam Howell in the second, I guess maybe third.
I will also just say, again, I not that we need to go out of our ways to try to nail this, but just with this structure build, I think Hurts with 2 rookie quarterbacks would be a pretty justifiable build as well. So we could have some fun throwing darts on that.
You wouldn't take a Mason Rudolph though.
I wouldn't, just because I don't, it's the kind of, he's like what, a poor man's Matt Ryan, where it's like he's not going to run
this year in a way that I thought was surprising. That's the only reason he stands out at all to me.
Yeah. Chris, who is keeping track of it, said we took Ramondre at 101 last draft. Willis just took him here at pick 115. So he's getting a little cheaper.
Yeah. I mean,
I just don't think Mason Rudolph is something. I feel like he's the definition, even at his best, of being a replaceable fantasy producer. It's just like, how many times is he going to score more than 25 points and really be a net positive for your lineup? That just seems pretty unlikely to me.
I think that's fair. I was just throwing the question out there because sometimes inertia just does carry these guys to starting jobs, and if they don't find somebody they like more,
you riled up the chat so much. Everyone awoke. It was like, Spags, get this Mason Rudolph shit out of here.
He's been there for multiple years, survived accusations that were not great from Myles Garrett. Like they like Mason Rudolph enough, I'd say. Though Dwayne Haskins, Pete, you want to take Dwayne Haskins?
Jeez. Well, that's why I talked about getting squeezed in these drafts. But it's mainly, it feels a little barbelled right now where the elite quarterbacks are going early. A couple of the mid-tier guys get sprinkled in, and then a lot of these guys are sitting down here at what I would consider palatable prices.
I still like conceptually the Zach Wilson, kind of QB late stack there where you got to pay attention to get Elijah Moore when he's going to be appropriate. But like him, Carter with Zach Wilson, like I think that's an interesting jet stack that I find appealing that people just probably won't land on very much.
Yeah. All right. So looking at the board here, now we're into like a ton of question mark territory. As far as like all these guys at the top of the board, whether with injuries or free agency status. What's jumping out to you here for pick 11, 10?
Decent value at Jamison Williams. He's currently
Yeah.
number 5 on our fantasy 40 board and the number 2 wide receiver overall behind Garrett Wilson. So
Every time we say a guy's name, he goes.
oh fuck. All right. Well, Jamison Williams. Good pick. Good pick by that guy. Okay, now it got ugly.
I would say like I don't mind Chase Edmonds if we want to round out our bet on the Cardinals. I also, if we want to add Cole Kmet, I think he has some decent upside still.
Let's go Chase.
Okay.
I mean, Melvin Gordon's standing there, and I feel like he's gonna get carries somewhere. Pete in the 10, he's gonna get 10 to 15 carries. I'd say, even if he's in Denver, if he's in somewhere else. Like, does that have any interest at all to you at this point?
Sorry, who's that?
Melvin Gordon.
No, because you're basically having to hit a multi-leg parlay where, as good as Melvin Gordon looked last year, he's still getting older, and we know how those running backs can fall off the age cliff quickly. And on top of that, we need him to land in a situation where he's getting at least 50% of the carries in a decent run offense. So like nailing all of those things doesn't seem like the best bet to be making at this point in the draft.
And FF Doom in the chat saying, is Edmonds dropping just from free agency uncertainty? I mean, that's part of it. He's 25. Like, Chase Edmonds is pretty young, so you got to think he's going to land somewhere that's going to view him as somebody who's, can shoulder a good amount of the workload, if not an entire workload.
Yeah. I would say structurally, another wide receiver or going with a tight end like Kmet here makes sense. We were talking on ship chasing, and I know when Gretsch had done some of his targets per route run stuff that he thought Jarvis Landry was an incredible value in this range. But is there any other wide receivers that jump out for you?
I mean, Gage made some strides, but he's just kind of a poor man's version of Landry. I guess Van Jefferson could be useful, but then Woods should be back anyway, even if they don't keep Odell. I'm with you on Jarvis Landry. I'm willing to take that stab.
Yeah. I think he's a solid pick here. He's not exciting. He's not sexy. But I think at this cost, I mean, where was he going last year? Was he like an 8th and 9th round pick in most drafts?
It had to be higher than this, I would think. Yeah. I feel like he was somewhere in that 8 to 10 range.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely getting a bit of a discount on him where I don't think much has changed for him. If anything, but that I think there's a lot of room for that offense to be better, especially in the passing game.
Shout out to Derek, of course, our king of Malden, Massachusetts, saying he's not sniping us if we mention someone good. Very kind of him to do that, given that somehow everybody else is sniping our guys the second we send them. And TubeShawk saying, what are the optimal shots you should take on drafting this early that would pay off versus drafting later? Finding late round guys who could rise. I know, Pete, what you said a couple shows ago just held true to me, that just guys you think the ADP is going to go up on for various reasons. I think that's what I'm bringing mostly to each show. But do you have any thoughts you'd give to TubeShawks?
Yeah, that's always kind of my rule of thumb, even right before the season starts when we're drafting our season long leagues. And I know Sean Siegel over at RotoViz, who's in my opinion, the best fantasy sports player. He always says, like, what round is this guy going to be taken next year? And that's why it's sometimes hard to, draft the Jarvis Landrys, because you're like, is Jarvis Landry going to be a 4th round pick next year at this time? Probably not, but we're probably going to get decent value on him. So to me, it's, if I'm thinking about these drafts as part of my portfolio for the entire offseason, it is thinking like, where is sentiment going to change by August? We mentioned that with Devontae Adams. Once things solidify with him, he's probably going to be a top 5 pick. And obviously with some of these rookie landing spots, those are guys that can move up, guys who are in free agency. So taking the uncertainty or, the players where other people are concerned about that, I think is a really smart strategy. And then also kind of tying back into what we were saying with Drico and diversification, knowing the type of players that historically can make these leaps. So these second year wide receivers and these rookie wide receivers, second year running backs, I think focusing on those buckets of players whose value can really change is a good strategy.
Also, Devin asked if we're doing another big board after this one. We're going to do these every week, but would not stack them up because these are actually kind of long, Pete. But I don't know if you're going to be doing more of these just to fill your content schedule.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be chilling for the next week or so before I go on my trip. But when I get back from that, probably starting mid-March, I will start doing best ball breakfast streams on Monday mornings. I did those all last spring and summer and enjoyed that. So at least on this channel alone, you can get me on Monday morning. Spags and I will draft on Fridays. And then over on Ship Chasing too, we've been drafting most Wednesdays as well, kind of ping-ponging back and forth between Underdog and FFPC. So plenty of drafting to go around.
And BSP asking thoughts on David Bell. Obviously, for us, we're really relying on these other data sources, including the company I work for, Football Outsiders, and then also RotoViz, who we talked about, the Ringers stuff we've looked at as well. But we're at this point mostly trying to trust these guys. But David Bell, currently the number 6 overall receiver, according to Football Outsiders Fantasy 40, and number 15 overall on the board. So they are certainly seeing a lot of wide receiver value. And David Bell is one of those guys, and actually surprisingly ahead of Drake London, who has gotten a lot more hype coming out of USC, my alma mater.
Yeah, I think with the rookies, just splitting them and sprinkling them in, and also like they are often the most fun picks in these drafts because they are the shiny new thing. There's this black box nature of where they're going to end up. But I do think it's important to do those exercises and think of the cohorts of players and where these guys generally go. Like most of these guys aren't going to be Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase had one of the most insane prospect profiles we've ever seen. Most of them are not going to, be Jalen Waddle, where they not only kind of land in a nice spot where there's opportunity, other guys have injuries, then it's a perfect stylistic fit with the quarterback. Like those situations are hard to come by. And a lot of times I feel like some of these rookies right now are being drafted as if they're going to have that outcome. So I want to be taking shots, trying to find the next Amon-Ra St. Brown, more so than trying to find the next, Jalen Waddle. I think just cost adjusted, you'll do a lot better trying to mine the gems deep than kind of paying a premium because they have more buzz.
Yeah. And I think, we're going to certainly dig more on the data as well, whether it be, bringing some people on here to talk about that. I know I'm planning on doing a college data poll at some point after we get our board. But, last year, I think we identified some guys. We did identify Waddle and Devonta Smith as guys that ended up having upside. Obviously, they were also the top 2 drafted. And Jamar Chase, there are certain guys that are going to bubble up and you're going to hear about on every show, including ours. And I think that process certainly sees itself out over the next, 2 to 3 month window for sure, but certainly the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh my God.
Oh, come on.
Do it. All right. Let me explain what happened. Silas told me that the NFL Day Super Bowl pack waiting room is open. I was going and getting in the queue. Didn't realize we were on the clock, and whoopsie daisy, just accidentally drafted Laviska Shenault. And everyone can attest. Roll back the tape. He wasn't in the queue.
Unbelievable. We did it deliberately last time, so I guess it was due to happen accidentally, maybe.
I mean, sometimes destiny is just something you can't bully. You just have to accept what the world is offering us.
Oh my God. This pack is $260 on all day. Do I really? Am I going to get a return on this, Pete, as somebody who?
Probably not. But we are on the clock. Let's not draft Curtis Samuel here.
Hey, you want to take Marvin Jones backdoor that Jack stack?
No, actually.
KJ Osborne.
Okay. You sound excited for KJ Osborne.
The chance that Thielen might not be there. We saw Osborne kind of perform comparably. And get another young guy, get more reps, is going to improve.
The chat is demanding that I roll the clip. I'm going to have to go to the ship chasing theme just to do this, but here you go, you filthy animal.
Well, I'm now in
Unbelievable.
the NFL all day waiting room too, after seeing some of the chats from Silas and Willis. So we're all doing minus EV things today. Pete, you taking you taking Laviska, me in the all day room. We're all doing it.
I know every time I log into one of these new pack drops, the price just keeps going up. They're going to get me, they'll have the hollow drop it'll be 1,000. One of these days, you're just going to click a link and it's going to be like $20,000 for this pack. And we're going to be like, wait, how did this happen?
I was looking at my Top Shot account the other day, just seeing like if I should be trying to sell anything. And I have 65 moments, Pete, and they are the shittiest moments because I've sold off all my good ones. It's all like $4 ones of fucking fifth string point guards. Like it is really ugly on my Top Shot account.
I'm surprised you haven't gotten more hooked just because you're pretty into the NBA and playing the NBA DFS. Cause I know Osimo got hooked via the same kind of way. So I'm surprised you haven't dove deeper.
Well, it's because he did it really early, like which was the smart move, getting in early when the packs were flowing and you could buy markets and you would see them go up. Whereas I got in after and I made one or two big sales. Like I had a Zion, whatever, not it wasn't a legendary certainly, but one of the Zion packs that came out gave me my entire bankroll for it, and it turned 50 into like 1,000, and then just kind of made some bad purchase and was like, I guess I'll just keep the 1,000. and it's just sitting in my Dapper wallet. So that's why I'm going to buy this pack, is because it's just literally doing nothing for me right now.
This is how Dapper wins because, it's too hard for us to deposit. So we just leave it in there. And then whatever shiny new pack pops up, we're like, well, we got this money just burning a hole in our pocket.
This will actually be my first all day purchase too, assuming that I get in. So they're really getting me here. They are getting me I'm going to reinvest money. And I just know people are saying there's going to be a rare or a legendary in this pack. I just know mine's going to be like the fucking Ben Skoronek legendary of him not catching a pass.
Yeah. I do think this is a good pack. Just, it being, the Super Bowl pack, I think even more than like Top Shot with the finals, like just having it be from a singular game gives it more importance. And you have a nice combo of like all the Rams players who had nice plays are superstars, Stafford, Kupp, Von Miller, Aaron Donald. And then on the Bengals side, with Higgins, Chase, Burrow, you have all these super young, exciting guys. So I think it lines up to be a valuable pack. All right. So we're going to have to start thinking about alternate QBs or tight ends. Tight end has gotten really gross.
I don't mind Ingram here, hoping that the offense gets better. Dable is a tight ends coach historically. We saw Dawson Knox have a great year last year.
Yeah. Let's do Ingram. So structurally, we have 16, 17. We have 5 more picks. I think we should go with the double rookie quarterback strategy with Hurts.
Okay. I was encouraged by Jameis, that clip of him working at his knees and him going like he looked pretty close to ready to be on the field.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying we should take Jameis, to be clear, but I did like seeing the clip of him being mobile. I'm a Jameis fan, which is crazy because I used to hate that man so much. Sorry,
Derek. I don't like to make a business of sniping people who give us $30 in Malden driven super chats.
Derek is single-handedly bankrolling all these drafts.
It's true. Yeah, man, I am glad we got Freiermuth when we did. We probably should have grabbed another there, but we can go tight end by 3. So if we have 2 more picks that are going to be quarterbacks, 1 more that's going to be a tight end, it means we have, I would say, probably 1 more wide receiver and 1 more running back that we could draft. I'm definitely on board with Mostert here. I think this is still too cheap for him.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind it. I don't mind Mostert.
Who would be? I'm open to other options.
I would consider taking one of the rookie tight ends at this point, but I think Trey McBride already went, right?
Yeah.
He's the only first rounder. Let's just take Mostert and deal with it.
Yeah.
I do think we could also end up with another Jags. We could end up with Dan Arnold, and we can, as we seem to do every draft.
I like how the sentiment is now Mostert's dusty because he got injured. Mostert was going to have an absolutely massive year last year if he didn't get injured there. And again, of all the backfields, I've been taking Trey Sermon late in these drafts too, where it literally does not matter. If we have a running back who's getting starting touches in the 49ers offense, they are going to be a productive fantasy asset. I think where Eli Mitchell is going, even though he's the best bet to be the guy there. I think it's a little rich, and I want to take shots on the cheap guys who, in the event of a Mitchell injury or just through their play, or if Mostert lands somewhere else. Like I feel like there's a decent amount of outs for these guys.
Chris G, representing for the Chris's out there, calling out the number 2 tight end who actually could theoretically rise his way into the first round, Jalen Weidermeyer from Texas A&M, and he's actually our number 2 tight end on the Fantasy 40 on Football Outsiders as well. So good call there. And he's actually had, I think Jake Ferguson's gotten some more headlines, but we apparently think that Weidermeyer is going to bubble up above him.
Yeah, I have no Weidenmeyer takes yet.
Oh, he just seems like a guy. He doesn't light you up on fire like Sky Moore did.
I like Hines Doom. I feel like everyone feels burned by those pass catching backs last year that didn't really deliver, but I still think that archetype makes a ton of sense in your builds, especially 0 RB builds. And yeah, I have no problem with Hines.
And if you're watching live or after the fact, make sure you hit the like button here. The good news for you, if you're watching this one, is you got to see Laviska Shenault. You got to see the clip. So how could you not hit the like button after that, Pete? This bit that grows sadder by the offseason.
It is. I mean, the saddest part about the Viska thing is when I made that first clip, my thought was I will continue to update it like throughout his career. And I've never felt compelled. I've never had enough footage to justify updating it.
The preseason game last year, where we caught the 2 touchdowns from Trevor Lawrence, I feel like was actually the apex of his, like, everybody being in.
Yeah. This will be the year, though. It's like once everyone's finally off of him, that's when we can fly.
Tube Socks asking thoughts on forgotten sophomores, aka Terrace Marshall and Diami Brown. I think we've taken both those guys at some point during our draft so far, Pete. And I think they're perfectly valuable assets. Like, it really just takes Marshall. If you see Robbie Anderson go, or if somehow DJ Moore moved on, like if Marshall steps up into that one of those top 2 receiver slots, he could be useful. And Diami Brown, we actually saw be kind of useful last year.
Yeah, I think I'm more interested in Diami because I feel like his lack of production was more opportunity driven as opposed to not being good. Whereas Terrace Marshall had some opportunities and he just did not have a good year.
He got hurt too.
Let's see here. So if I think we can do we're going to do one more wide receiver, one more tight end. I mean, do you want to do Njoku? I think he makes sense too with our Landry, kind of our bet on the Browns, similar to our
Njoku works. I mean, it's either that or Dan Arnold. We've already done a Dan Arnold draft. I like diversifying, so I'll say let's go David Njoku's way.
Yeah, and then I feel like we could have fun with some of our rookies. We got Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, and Sam Howell. Like, I feel like we could get 2 of those 3 guys.
Malik Willis is gone, huh? I didn't see him. I didn't pay attention when he was gone.
Yeah, who took Malik Willis? Got drafted by the Parlay. Where is he? Oh, at the turn. He took him. Wait, where? Wait.
Where there he is. In the 13th. No, the 15th. Sorry.
Oh, wait.
Furiyama took him.
Oh, Furiyama. There must have been a bug on there. Yeah. Okay. 15th round. Yeah. Doesn't seem awful.
That's interesting. I look, my theory is that he ends up being the top QB drafted. So I'm intrigued to see that movement here in these drafts.
All right. We're on the clock. So we're either taking one of our rookie quarterbacks or our final wide receiver.
I think let's take a rookie QB.
You want to
let's
do
take Kenny Pickett. Yeah.
Okay.
Like he's the only one who's got odds to be the number 1 overall pick. I still think Malik Willis passes him overall, but Pickett's being valued, like a guy who should be at least in the mix to be a day 1 starter, if not actually be a day 1 starter.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
Boy, that is an ugly QB room though.
You're just a classic Philly fan, just shitting on Jalen Hurts. There's nothing wrong with Jalen Hurts.
That's true. I was canvassing some people before the draft today and was like, what do you think about Jalen Hurts? Should we draft him along with one of the rookie QBs? And they were like, no, you got to get somebody a little more solid. And Jalen, get out of town is what they were saying, yelling from their doors.
I don't know.
Gardner Minshew. Put a headband on. We need a guy like Gardner Minshew.
Oh my God.
I honestly, An interesting team we built here. I don't know if this is good. I don't know if this is a good team or a bad team, but it's an interesting team for sure.
It is. It is interesting. One of these days I will not get shut out of an elite quarterback, but right now my exposures are not including those players.
No, I mean, we tried to get Trey Lance, and now Trey Lance is going like 75th overall. I was seeing on Twitter.
Well, this is, I mean, the Trey Lance stuff. Like, don't get me wrong. I want Trey Lance to be so good. Nothing would make me more happy. But Trey Lance in the 7th, when with Jalen Hurts, I guess we took him right around the same range. So I mean that makes sense. But I still do think I'd prefer Jalen Hurts over Lance because it's like you're hoping Trey Lance turns into Jalen Hurts. Probably have a bit of a better supporting cast, better coach. So I get it, but you're still buying something we haven't seen yet, where we have seen it with Hurts. I don't know.
No, I'm with you on that. And also our guy Derek, who's been busy lighting us up with super chats, bashing Malden Mass, apparently not happy with his wide receivers. Who does Derek have at receiver, Pete?
Well, Derek, let me tell you how this works. When you use 4 of your first 5 picks on running backs, and then one of those wide receivers is DeAndre Hopkins, you're gonna hate your fucking wide receivers.
I was going to say, like, he's drafting, like, we talked about Eagles on the shows, another guy that's always maxing these out and has done pretty well. James is his real name. He was like talking up really heavily drafting running backs. And I was like, look, I have more power to anybody here who's not just going with the hive mind thought, even if I do agree, like, the zero RB movement speaks a little bit more to me. Shout out to everybody just drafting 5 running backs and just hoping it works out.
That's right. You got to mix it up. Goes back to
diversify.
That is the thing. Everyone thinks diversification means diversification through your player exposures. You should be diversifying your structures as well.
Yeah.
Let's see. I do think I want one of these picks. I want to take Sam Howell. I want to call my shot. I did 30 seconds of research. I found a Steelers blog who has connected. They took the corkboard out. They said the Pittsburgh Steelers officials have been at Chapel Hill scouting this guy. And then we are going to come back and circle back to this draft after the NFL draft. And we're going to say, Pete, you fucking oracle, you
are the Sam Howell whisperer. Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Good.
I do like Desmond Ridder more. Because I've seen more clips of him, but like if the Steelers blogs are saying Howell, who am I to question that?
I mean, the blogs say Howell, baby. Calling my shot. Chris G, mark this down in our spreadsheet that you're keeping track for us. The day I backdoored a Steelers quarterback stack before they had even drafted him.
Here's the question. Do we think, like, over the course of his career, Sam Howell is better than Ben DiNucci?
Yes.
Well, he won't be the pride of Italy, though, unless his name's Howellini.
Right after this show, I'm going to go watch my first bit of Sam Howell tape.
I bet it's awful. I bet it's like worse than Mitch Trubisky.
All right. Wide receivers here. We have yet to take. So our only rookies we have taken so far are quarterbacks. I say we add another wide receiver to round this out.
Do we have Jahan Dotson somewhere?
Nope, he's gone.
He's gone. Treylon Burks also gone.
Long gone.
Chris Olave.
Olave. I think he's gone. I think the long gone. Jalen Tolbert looks like the top rookie still available.
He's pretty down on our board. I would say Drake London or John Matchey over him.
I think both those guys are all gone.
How about George Pickens?
Gone. All of them are gone.
Calvin Austin?
Who?
Calvin Austin.
How do you spell it?
Austin.
Okay, fine. I've never heard of this guy in my life. To give you
the
sales
slot guy out of Memphis. I've seen some tape of him from when we were at the Senior Bowl. Plays like Antonio Gibson, but out of the slot.
All right. Calvin Austin it is. I also heard what university did he go to?
Memphis.
Yeah, I actually heard the Philadelphia front office has been down there scouting him, and they heard that we needed to complete a Jalen Hurts stack. So I think they'll definitely make that pick.
Like you wanted a guy, an Amon-Ra St. Brown type, and Calvin Austin, a slot guy, diminutive, fits the
Yeah, I mean,
profile.
the Eagles need a good slot receiver, right?
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
People really called me out for not getting the rookies. I didn't know all these guys were gone. People were really overdrafted the rookies. These guys were all available a couple weeks ago when we did our first one.
I mean, they're screaming up the draft boards. Sky Moore goes in the 17th here. John Mechie went in the 15th. This is what happens, right? It's what I was saying before. It's the unknown. It's like you're looking at the dustiest veterans. Do you really want to take Jawan Jennings over some black box rookie who could land in the right spot? I mean, we're all just clackety clack, rolling the dice, having some fun on a cold February afternoon.
To be clear, Jawan Jennings is 24. Like I don't know that he should be lumped in. It's not quite AJ Green.
I mean, it's pretty dusty. He's like, is he like a glorified tight end?
No, he's a bigger bodied guy, but he's slender. He's apparently 6'4", 215. So it's an ideal build. Ideal build for a man.
Really?
I mean, neither of us are that, I don't think.
How tall are you, Spags?
6'1".
Okay, so I would say you read shorter because we're the same height, and I would have assumed that I was a little taller than you.
I think it's the framing, but I have heard that before, and it bothers me because I don't know, like it feels like an insult. But my guy Eric Lindquist, also at Osimo, we hung out in LA. He's like 6'5", and like as wide as I am, and it was just weird because it's like, oh, we're both guys that people think are small on camera, and here we are looking like at least a decently out of shape offensive line crew.
All right, I've named this splash play Pitt rookie QB. So I'm willing it into existence here.
They couldn't even get Sam Howell. It couldn't even get the full branding on this one.
Yeah, both of us stand up, Spags.
My thing is like here though. So this is the you can see my legs. Here we go. So this is me. This is not standing up, but this is my full frame. Look at these lats coming in.
Wow. Awesome. Much smaller in person.
Yeah, that's shit. My money's I think like 5'6" or something too. And
is he really?
Yeah, I would have thought he's like 5'11".
I would have guessed the exact same. I think if you said how tall is he, I would have said 6 feet.
Yeah, no, he's 5. Apparently, he's like leprechaunian.
This is man. We need to get everyone for a fantasy sports conference. But like the way you build a conference is there's no keynotes. There's no networking events. It's literally just to see how tall people are. And that's the way we do our fantasy sports.
The fantasy combine where we just get measured in our underwear.
All it is we rent out an entire hotel, and there's like one of those things when you go to get on a roller coaster to make sure you're tall enough, and just everyone lines up, and we just get the height, and we just have a height database for everybody in the fantasy sports industry.
I think honestly that fantasy football expo thing in August, I feel like NBC Sports Edge, I know, is one of the backers there, but I feel like they're really trying to blow that one out. That could be an event. Like I think they get enough people there where I would support it. I would support us doing a live show, but where we don't actually get measured, we just mock everybody else.
And from now on, when you're on shows, you have to, instead of your name in the StreamYard, you actually just list your height. That's all it is.
And honestly, like I thought it was funny though, because at like there are a lot of like people who are tall, but whenever somebody's like, yeah, like I'm 6'3", it's like, yeah, are you 6'3"? Like,
yeah, I'm trying to think who is surprisingly tall that I've met in fantasy.
Crane seems tall.
No, I'm taller than Crane.
Huh. Okay. I know Lofty's like 6'2". Josh at Osmo is like I think 6'4". I want to say.
Okay. All right. There you go.
And I think Kawaisenberg at FTN, I think, is also pretty tall, if I'm remembering correctly.
John Paulson's like 6'8" or 6'9", like legit.
Freeman's tall too, right?
Matt Freeman?
Yeah. No, Justin Freeman.
Oh, Justin Freeman. I've never met Justin in person, and he doesn't list everyone. If you're watching this new thing, you have to put your height in your Twitter bio.
Justin Freeman. I'm gonna look up Justin Freeman's Duke profile. Let's see if
his Duke profile.
Offensive guard. It's his whole. Oh my, Pete, you need to hold on. I'm texting this to you now. You need to pull this up immediately before we jump off the show,
dude. Height chat is going crazy right now.
Justin was 6'1" and 290, as you'll see when Pete pulls this one up. The headshot, though, is where the money is really made of our pal Justin Freeman to run this in.
I've seen this before too. Hang on, Duke is trying to get my ad blocker off the screen here.
Oh, how dare they? Classic Duke.
All right, here he is. I have seen this before.
Oh, that
it's so
that
good.
Is an offensive lineman headshot if you've ever seen one.
It's so good. So good.
It's funny too because Justin was telling me he doesn't watch the show like on YouTube. He just listens on podcasts afterwards. So he's gonna like get through an entire show and he's gonna hear us pull it up.
For everyone looking at home or listening at home, we are looking at a headshot of Justin Freeman on the Duke football website from this would be what circa like 2007 or 8 would be my guess on this photo. So yes, you need to turn off your podcast app and log into YouTube to see this in all of its resplendent glory.
Matthew, I don't want to read this out loud, but he said got a bit of a Chris Farley vibe. Which is accurate, but like Chris Farley if he were a dominant offensive lineman at Duke University.
There you go. Hey there, do you have questions about tickets? Christina asks, engage live. If I had more time, I would say I would love to see Justin Freeman. Can I get Justin Freeman tape from the Duke archives?
All right, Pete, you're not doing anything, are you? The next show you'll be doing will be us on Monday?
I'm going to an open house right now, Spags. That's what I'm doing.
Okay, so go check out Pete at that open house. Is it in Medina? Is it or Malden?
Malden. No, I would never do that to Derek. It would be a betrayal that not even I would ever consider.
Make sure to follow at Peter Overzet, follow at Chris Spags, and follow at Splash Play Pod. If you got the time, leave us 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts. It would help us out a bunch. And if you want to go follow on TikTok, I swear we're going to put something up on there at some point at Splash Play Pod. It'll be the same handle as on Twitter and Instagram. So go give it a follow there. Any final words, Pete, before we return on Monday at 2:30?
No final words other than we are starting to get a little bit more USFL news. We got an update on how they're going to be doing their draft. It's actually a really cool format. Did you see how they're doing it?
I did actually. I think I retweeted Kyle Dvorchak from NBC. We should talk about that on Monday because I think it's interesting and we'll tease it. Yeah. So come back on Monday and you'll hear exclusively about the USFL and we'll see you guys then. Enjoy your weekends. Good luck.